Okay, hi everyone. So, no sign of Gavin Williamson. Shall we give him 5 more minutes? Maybe we could see if he'll join us. We'll give him five, and if he doesn't turn up, I believe we're allowed to sue him. I'm going to look into that for the next 5 minutes. But here's the countdown. Here we go. So there we have it. We can officially record at 2:05. Gavin Williamson, no platformed himself. So that means I think either we can sue him, although it's unclear how that legislation works or if it's even gone through or if it's just his opinion. Or I believe, regardless, we can more or less say to him, if he's perfectly happy to silence himself, by all means, please do stop speaking, and do feel free to be silent, Gavin Williamson. Okay, and this was a platform for Gavin, but we'll have to do something else. So I will now bring on our guests. We've got starting up. We've got the woke sorcerer. Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Yeah? It's a sunny day.
It is. I'm very upset that Gavin hasn't shown up. I think it's rude, frankly. We've all had to rush here, haven't we? We've all got jobs to do. First day back of term. He can't even be bothered to send an apology. How rude.
No.
Then again.
No, and I did very officially, invite him. And as usual, we always change the time. He could have sent a surrogate. Instead, we've got myself, woke sorcerer, and then we've got some guy is also back. Hello.
Hello. I've been accidentally platformed once again.
I think we're all accidentally platformed, aren't we?
And once again, our invitation has been rejected.
Very upset.
Yeah.
I'd love to debate, such a brilliant mind as Gavin Williamson. Just the opportunity to do so, especially a fireside chat, a fireside chat.
Yeah, not to be confused, of course, with let me see if I can find our stick stock, because stick to stock may be here and be willing to join us again, but I'll have to see because last week or last time we did this, obviously, let's see, is this right? Oh, there it is. There's good old stick stock has once again volunteered to debate us, even when Kathleen Stock very suspiciously sort of removed her Twitter account just after our show. I don't think that was related.
Yeah, again,
In any case,
she deplatformed herself on Twitter.
She did, but then came back when it was time to. She's got a book out now, so
yeah, got a grift on the hustle.
Now, maybe it's worth putting on the record because I'm going to put out a prediction on Kathleen Stock. I think she's going to go to the wall at is it Sussex where she is?
Mm-hmm.
I think she's going to refuse to sign like whatever Stonewall diversity champion, because she's given a lot of things about Stonewall, which is essentially asking people to be polite, like voluntarily.
Yeah, it's difficult for some people to do that, though.
She's framing it like it's the thought police, and this is the worst thing since George Orwell died or whatever.
Yeah. Famously, never to be heard, never to be spoken of again. George Orwell.
Yes. Yeah. So, so I think because she's mentioned something about being brought for discipline, and I'm going to guess. This is my prediction. I think that she's going to refuse to sign some really basic kind of like, can you please just not be publicly, or not even publicly, but in your class, can you not like be rude to your own students? And she won't sign it, and then we'll see how far it gets before the university basically disciplines her. And I think that she wants to get fired for that, so that she can then sell the book. But
you see, look, I mean, I work on medieval history, and I work on, Christians kind of, in some cases, desperate to be martyred. They're kind of in Spain, when you had the kind of Islamic conquest, you had Christians that would, be out there going, "Come on, guys, come on, get me." And this doesn't seem that much different to me, to be quite honest with you. But that's what happens when people.
No, well, instead she very unfortunately gets a professorship, gets an OBE. All she wants is to be burnt at the stake, I think.
Yeah, but Thomas Becket was Archbishop of Canterbury, Thomas Becket got to be Archbishop of Canterbury. He did all right for himself.
Yeah.
I find the trajectory fascinating, right? Because at one point, I think Kathleen Stock and Adam Tickell were kind of sort of praising each other. I think Adam Tickell was probably the one who gave Kathleen Stock a professorship, and then Kathleen Stock also, I believe she said that, she praised Adam Tickell for sort of, writing various announcements and all staff emails and calling for, both sides and blah, 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 blah,
Sure.
blah. So it seemed like for a while there was a fairly cozy relationship between Kathleen Stock and senior management University of Sussex. And obviously that has somehow now fallen apart, because I'm guessing what she's been doing is now being counted, or is now being perceived as reputational damage for the University of Sussex. So SMT is now going after her. So I mean, she could always join the union, I suppose.
Yeah,
she's deplatformed herself. She deplatformed herself from the union, though. Don't you remember she left?
Herself more of our Free Speech Live as well, and there's really plenty of opportunity for her to debate. I mean, she seems to be everywhere. Has a very, I expect, very well publicized book, and I think that this is the classic grift, isn't it? This is the way of selling your books in a kind of post-Trump moment. But it feels like it's a bit kind of like third generation, fourth generation. I don't know how much longer this is going to go on. This kind of I've been silenced, and yet was it?
Buy my book.
Place, right?
Yeah, I've been silenced.
Suzanne Moore, who's also been famously silenced on every newspaper.
Yeah. Yeah.
It just feels like, jumping on this particular sort of grift bandwagon, if you like, seems to be a little bit late in the day. It's like kind of going onto the stock market and buying GameStop now. like this is last year or a few months.
Have you heard?
Yeah, but I mean, second wave feminism was the early 70s. So, these people are kind of, living it 50 years ago in a way, aren't they? But yeah, it's.
Well, and so
I can see right through it.
So speaking of 50 years ago, we could kind of go in one of two directions. One is, as we were thinking about Kathleen's struggles with her own university, I mean, we could talk about the actual free speech crisis that's going on now, which, as far as I can tell, is sort of the epicenter of that is not Sussex, but University of Leicester. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what's happening at Leicester is absolutely dystopian. It's not my institution, but I'm a medievalist, and medieval literature is one of the subjects that's under attack. And, I don't know if you saw the news, it made The Guardian that there was an emeritus professor who was tweeting about how awful, he's a critical management studies emeritus professor. He's tweeting about awful stuff. He was sent an email saying that they would revoke his emeritus professorship. He's 80 years old or something. And they said they'd revoke his the privileges that came with his professorship, such as library membership. And he pointed out that they were making most of the librarians redundant. So, what was much of the point? And And, he doesn't care. Like, he's just said, well, fine, sod you. I'll just, I don't care. I don't want this. But they're also now saying that anyone tweeting bad stuff, not even staff under target, anyone publicly saying that these things are bad, are getting disciplined, are getting letters. And it seems they're just going to go to the wall with it. They're just going to keep doubling down and, lose the reputational damage, is absolutely horrendous as well. But I mean, and we don't hear anything from the usual free speech crowd about people actively being silenced, talking about supporting their colleagues who are being targeted, partly because we know that, that the people who are being targeted are on the union branch, are very strong on the union branch, the way that they've kind of justified the precise people they want to get rid of in critical management studies. And so, I don't see any outrage about this from, I don't know, Toby Young or Gavin Williamson. For a start, I'd love to ask Gavin Williamson or Michelle Donlan, in fact, where are these people? Where are these people right now sticking up for these people's free speech? Or is it that they just, what they want is for people to be able to say specific bigoted things rather than actual free? I wish they'd just say that. I wish they wouldn't cloak it in this kind of free speech, because it's not what they care about, clearly.
Well, because if it was free speech, so I'm just going to pull this up. So this former, now he's a former professor emeritus.
Yeah, so he changed his bio almost immediately when that happened.
Because I think he was just like, he just resigned.
He was just like, fuck this, do you know what I mean? Like, I'm off. He's 80 years old and he's just shit posting. I absolutely love it. What a don.
I mean, he is mostly very fair and incredibly funny.
He is. I love him. He is goals. I want to be like Peter Armstrong when I'm 80.
Yeah, to all the people who are emeritus out there, if you're not shitposting daily and getting your former employer's management to write you threatening emails to revoke your emeritus status, you're not doing it right. Be like Peter Armstrong if you're retired.
And also, to be honest with you, Neil, can I just say the retired arm of the UCU members and their retired committee could also be, making noise here. Just saying.
Oh yeah, well, I mean,
but let's not get into UCU stuff now.
This is also very classic. The dignity and respect. Has anyone else come across this?
They've been told that it's the dignity and respect policy, but that only works in an equal relationship. It only works when, it doesn't.
But there have been a point where in a previous job I had, there was dignity and respect policy that relates to social media, and it's clearly HR across the sector have figured out this policy, which is designed with presumably noble intentions to promote inclusion and dignity and respect, has been weaponized by HR, where it's basically any criticism of management is sort of, people are hauled in to these kind of tribunals. Like they are genuinely if we are going to throw around this sort of Stasi, because very often, and this is something I went and tried to research as well when I was at my previous job, was they said that they used some kind of software to locate what tweets of mine violated the dignity and respect policy. And then I sort of thought, okay, that sounds like the most advanced software in the world. And then I subsequently found out that it was the vice chancellor himself reading the tweets. It's like, that's not a very, that's a very high.
But that's the thing, isn't it? If you had tweeted something like, my vice chancellor smells like poo and wee, then that would be a violation of the dignity and respect policy, although it would be quite funny. But if you're kind of criticizing, generally criticizing stuff, and obviously if you're naming someone in HR that's been bad to you and being horrible about them, I completely understand. But I think this dignity and respect policy, what really pisses me off about this is that this dignity and respect policy is there for people like me who are disabled. So if someone comes in and starts being shitty to me because I've got a mental illness, I can say, no, wait a minute. Or they might start being racist towards Leon or whatever it is. And the fact that it's now been weaponized to mean oh, you can't say something horrible about the Vice Chancellor who earns hundreds of thousands of pounds every year and who is doing horrible things, but no, that's dignity and respect. And it's like,
Well,
but it's not very dignified, is it?
In this instance with Leicester, I mean, this fellow Peter Armstrong is emeritus from the School of Management, right? And they're essentially gutting the critical management studies for which the university is quite well known and well respected.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
Basis. Other than they've got this funny quantum, like the metrics. They're using metrics, aren't they?
Well, what they want to do is get rid of the people that are very strong on the UCU branch, who mostly happen to be in CMS, and they're saying, oh, we're only going to target teaching and research staff, and then they keep narrowing the goalpost to kind of make it so it's just the people that they want out who are clearly strong in the UCU branch. It's just yeah. And Henrietta.
There is that side of it. That's the UCU side of it, and obviously that's really troubling. I'm also wondering if there's an additional layer, which, if you picture the head of the management, the School of Management. So here I'm going to pull up. This is Leicester's business management. So apparently they walk really fast when they're up and down the stairs when they're at Leicester. Wow. Yeah, that's really speedy. Okay.
That's capitalism for you. No one's allowed to walk slowly. It's maximum.
So if you were
Koyani Squatsy, it's better.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. This is the new ad for is it Koyani Squatsy? Okay, so now the way that appointments are made for these types of heads of school positions, the actual staff in this department would not have chosen the head of the school, right? And so that person then has to deal with all of these critical management studies people who are essentially making very legitimate arguments about how poorly management in general is organized, not just at Leicester, but generally and around. So it's almost like complete attack on whoever this leader's whole scholarship and life's work, right? Is essentially oh, you're actually just a shill for the worst forces in our contemporary society. So I can understand how very quickly that type of a person would get quite annoyed. But then when the opportunity comes up and it's oh, we've got this metric to isolate who's going to get cut and redundant, it's he's just going to plug in critical. I mean, isn't that what he did? He just plugged in if you put the word critical in your publication, you're now on the chopping board.
Yeah.
Isn't that? I mean, that just seems like that's blatant academic freedom is completely irrelevant at that point. When you're just saying, I'm gonna put in a keyword that I don't like, and then I'm gonna say that the algorithm told me that you were.
Yeah, it's you published in this journal, which is a critical journal. Never mind the fact that you've got all of these publications. That's because you've banged them out for the ref or whatever, and they've probably benefited from that. But then it's you published in this, and that's a critical this, and that's blah blah blah. Absolutely. Galaxy-brained way of doing things, isn't it?
Well, and so this is definitely this is the actual crisis of free speech going on. So let's just see what is our man Gavin have to say about it. Let's see. So there's Gav.
Oh, hi Gav.
And he's just he's got all these sort of crises related to free speech and whatnot. I was going to look up there's the future of higher education is the latest one that he's done. And I mean,
to be fair, Gavin Williamson was so committed to free speech that he was sacked by Theresa May for leaking a defense report. So
he was so committed to not deplatforming himself that he refused to resign, didn't he? He had to be forcibly deplatformed from his job by Theresa May. Yeah.
Yeah.
Death of a fire-based salesman. I like that.
Well, because so apparently, so I didn't realize this because I was looking into, just in case he turned up. I was thinking about what I might ask him. So I could have asked him about. Apparently, he was kissing his coworkers in 2004, and got fired for being a fireplace salesman, and then decided to go into politics.
Oh wow! Hold on. So fireplace salesman was his actual job. I thought it was like a metaphor for something else.
No. He was
literally selling fireplace.
No, he was a fireplace salesman.
It's not some like horrible euphemism for I don't know. I'm not even going to go there.
And then David Kernahan at Wonky, he found out this thing. So there's Gavin Williamson was fired because and it was because he was kissing his coworker. And that, you know, and then he got back with his wife or whatever. But then he became where is it? He became the president of Ainsley China in Stoke, because I guess he's aiming now for his South Staffordshire seat, or he might he because he's now MP for Derbyshire. And so apparently they were getting ready for the Charles and Camilla wedding. And they printed all the wrong dates on the china. And so they made these like.
Do you know what though? Those like wrong stuff like that can be worth loads of money. So if you find any of those wrong ones, they might be like priceless now.
Yeah, he's just creating collector's item.
You could get one for $750 right now. $750.
Oh, so you can actually $750.
Yeah, with the wrong. That's the thing. Yeah.
Do you reckon he's declared that in Parliament?
Selling them from his basement, right?
That's so bad.
Well, I mean, Gavin is known for having a relatively poor grasp on dates. If you think about what has been happening to universities and schools in the past year. Are we opening? Are we reopening on this date? Who knows? So once again,
maybe he should make some celebratory ceramics.
Once again, we can see the direction of travel, can't we?
12th of April, or is it?
So hold on. So he was basically sacked for sexually harassing a colleague at his workplace. And then
didn't know if it was a date. Didn't know if it was a date or not, did he? More date confusion.
Well, more date confusion. There we go. And so does that mean like? And then he became the Conservative MP after that. So what? Like sexual harassment is now a requirement to be a Tory MP?
Probably.
No, but so here's what I have from his early life. Right? Okay. He was born in Scarborough. And then he was the national chair of the Conservative students in '97. And I actually went and I found footage, I believe, of his events, because the year after he was chair, they got disbanded. And I think it was because they were basically behaving really, really badly. as conservative youth group sort of is known to do. So I think, let me see if I can find this. Yes, here we have.
This is the man that now wants silent corridors in schools.
Yeah, and is complaining about the sort of the discipline. Let's see if this is going to come up. But yeah, so he obviously. Okay, so when he was a student, he was. He was more or less, he was running the Conservative Students Association, which then got shut down for poor behavior. So,
yeah, I think my point earlier is that he's not that sort of Bullingdon representation, typical stereotype, whatever thing, right? He's not that, but rather he's like almost kind of like he went to University of Bradford, which, by the way, for the record, I think it's a really important institution in a city that's got tremendous amounts of deprivation. So it's a really important institution.
Yeah, absolutely.
But he's almost kind of like the socially aspirational Tory, the socially aspirational Conservative. He aspires to be like those people who have Oxford PPEs and who were members of a Bullingdon Club. And I think it potentially, like to sort of almost psychoanalyze it a little bit, is perhaps that bit, right? That kind of inferiority complex, perhaps, that might explain like some of this incredibly aggressive behavior and sort of general presentation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and this is something. So this was something that he wrote when he was the chair. He said Labour ministers seem to have decided that students are to pay £1,000 a year, and this will destroy the principle of free education for all. I think he's probably right about that.
I mean, he's not wrong, is he? I'm looking at this and going, yeah.
Oh, and higher education is a right for everyone that should be preserved. Labour is making every effort to make higher education sole bastion of many, discouraging the less well-off from seizing the opportunities for everyone created by conservative governments. So free education created by conservative governments.
That makes me think about the number of kids Boris Johnson's got, everyone created by conservative governments, such as the children of Boris Johnson.
I mean, anyway. I think I'm old enough to remember that when the general election involving Michael Howard, I think one of the pledges was to abolish tuition fees. Right, Ian Duncan Smith and George Osborne, I think, literally wrote to the constituents that they're going to abolish university tuition fees, and now
was that like 2001 or something, or like
here we are
during the Blair years. Yeah.
Oh God, it's the latter part of the Blair years.
Because there was that period of terrible Tory leadership. Like there was like William Hague, Michael Howard, Ian IDS, all of those weird.
It was Hague and then IDS and then Michael Howard. So it would have been the 2005 general.
Yeah. Because Labour had brought in that fee under Andrew Adonis, another favourite of mine. He's blocked me on Twitter, by the way. Deplatformed. But yeah, it would have been 2005.
Something that Phoenix sent in because she couldn't be with, Phoenix couldn't be with us today, and so they sent in this, which is from '98. This is students lead the third way. From Times Higher, 10,000 members. Insiders admit it's 4,000. Outsiders 2,000. Gavin Williamson said over the past 10 years, numbers have declined. So he blames the unpopularity of the last government. I suppose that's meaning Major, John Major. All they needed was Margaret Thatcher to come back. But
wow, yeah,
there's a lot. But
surely, maybe numbers declined because they lost in the marketplace of ideas and students weren't interested. Maybe that could also be it, couldn't it? We think you're clever shit. We don't want to join it.
Yeah. Well, and so while we don't have Gavin Williamson with us, we might as well look up higher education, free speech, and academic freedom. There we go. So on 17th of February, can everyone see this as I'm sharing it?
Might need to blow it up just a tiny bit.
Okay. Right. Okay. So this is what we have in front of us. February 21, 2021. There he is. Fundamental to society. It's the lifeblood. It's talking about Charles Darwin.
Okay. Well, Charles Darwin famously silenced. Never heard of him.
Famously deplatformed.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Life of Brian. Oh, okay.
So here he's referencing Noel, Carl, or Todd. So he's saying Noah, Carl, and Selena Todd are kind of, the canaries in the coal mine.
Oh wow! I didn't realize that Gavin Williamson went to the length of naming particular.
No, I didn't know that. I didn't notice that until just now.
But Noah Carl was sacked for lying on his CV, wasn't he?
Yes.
Ultimately.
Well, we've got Noah Carl down as someone to invite, so we can ask him directly, as well as ask him why he defended he did subsequently, after getting fired, he then defended the race science as a legitimate field. I mean, at the time he said, "Oh, I've not ever done any race science," but then the first thing he did within like a week was say, "This is why race science is great," with Bo Weingard. So we'll ask him about that.
Oh yeah, Bo Weingard also.
If he turns up, I don't know if he will.
Yeah. Yeah.
But here we've got growing body of evidence citing a chilling effect. Now, as we know, that growing body of evidence is Eric Kaufman.
It's Eric Kaufman's report.
Chilling effect.
I mean, that's it. That's the old.
Oh my God. Is this his bad project where he interviewed a load of 80-year-old boomers?
Well,
who are retired academics.
We need to invite Gavin Williamson to lunch. I would do that.
I wouldn't feel very comfortable having lunch with Gavin Williamson. He's the kind of person that would steal food off my plate. He looks the type.
Well, okay, there's a legal framework in place. I mean, the UK's response to this is basically like there's already laws protecting speech in universities. So what specifically are you asking them to do? And apparently it's to have a free speech and academic freedom champion. So
it's going to be Toby Young, isn't it?
Well, we could always go to our wall of champions. Should we look at this? Should we get our wall of heroes?
Is this our Comic Sans?
Yes, of course. Here we go. Now we can also add. We could add
Professor Gavin Williamson or the Right Honourable.
Gavin Williamson. CBE. MP.
Is he?
Yes.
Is he a CBE? For what? Lying?
Despite lying, despite leaking Huawei information and then lying about
like
it.
Leon said, it's free speech, isn't it?
It's just commitment to free speech, yeah. Like,
free speech, I can say whatever I want with no consequences. So
only you can't if you're an employee of the University of Leicester, but that's a different thing.
Yeah, should we nominate Peter Armstrong, former Professor Emeritus, to be the free speech and academic freedom champion at University of Leicester?
I think we should. He's really cool. I think he's great. I hope he's watching. Hi, Peter, if you're watching, I think you're great. I'd like to sit and eat cake with you. I would feel comfortable having lunch with Peter Armstrong. How's that?
I would definitely. Here's the point where they're introducing a statutory tort for breach of the duty. So that's why I feel like I could sue him. And I was trying to. I set up this thing called. They didn't allow me to approve it, but I set up a crowd justice funder for my right to say that Gavin Williamson was a member of the Happy Mondays at every university.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I wanted to, and they wouldn't allow me to do that. But I wanted to sue them if they didn't, because if there's a tort for free speech, it's like, on what basis can you stop just saying whatever you want?
Yeah. I mean,
because academic freedom, there's standards of like, there's facts, and so on. It's like you can't just say whatever you want.
I mean, if I was teaching a class on the Vikings, for example, which is something that I do have to do, and I came in and I was like, right, well, I'm just going to teach you a class on, God God knows, I don't know, Chaucer, or, you know, or if I was saying like, oh yeah, the Vikings were, and I talked a load of shit about the Vikings. It's not in the literature and in the research. Then my students would be quite kind of welcome to say, well, actually, that wasn't a class on what we were told it was a class on, and the professor was talking bollocks, or the teacher was talking bollocks. So I don't really, you can't say whatever you want, because you can't say, oh, well, in fact, the Vikings are invented and they're a complete myth, or whatever it is. You can't say it, can you? Well, you could, but there would be consequences.
Yeah.
Well,
and
now I'm thinking about all of the conspiracy theories I could come up with about the Vikings. I'm sure some people have already done all of this. But you know what I mean? It's like...
but here's where he said, because this is where the logic of this free speech argument really... They're saying that they're distinct concepts. Freedom of speech and academic freedom are different. So academic freedom is primarily concerned with the ability to question and test perceived wisdom. I didn't realize that's not the only basis of academic freedom.
Then they should be very concerned about what's happening at the University of Leicester with this, because they're saying that
in jeopardy of losing their jobs or privileges, which is exactly what's happening at Leicester. But
I don't see Michelle Donnellan or whoever up in arms about this.
No, because that's the thing. They want us to care about this as a principle, right? They are trying to say, oh, it has nothing to do with conservatives versus... It's like, we just like academic freedom in general because of these principles. But then, if that's the case, they should really be defending critical management studies at Leicester. I mean,
the thing is that they want what they want is for TERFs and people who like race science to be able to say what they want, and that they've tied themselves into pretzels trying to find a way to sort of justify this, and that's why they don't care what's happening at Leicester, or in fact, staff at Chester getting served redundancy notices just before a bank holiday weekend. They don't care about any of this stuff. They don't care about that. They care about people saying specific bigoted things and, making their students feel unsafe as a result, And this is why this makes no bloody sense.
They want to do this on the cheap, right? Because obviously, like the easiest way to do this is just for some donor to give a university a huge amount of money to set up a chair or a lectureship or whatever in conservative studies. But they don't want to do that. They want to do this on the cheap. Yeah.
Well, they're perfectly welcome to set up a chair in conservative studies if they want to. Anyone could do that, couldn't they?
But also, this is getting to the point where I have seen conservatives actually say they're getting really annoyed with people saying that race science is conservatism. They don't particularly... There are conservative views represent, like economic conservatism is everywhere. It's all over economics. It's like, and you could do political theory. You could study Edmund Burke. You could do all of these things. So the thing that's being excluded is like far right views, like like full on National Socialism. Let's do this, and and then the other one is gender critical stuff, and for whatever reason, like the gender critical people, for some reason, because they have the word feminism in the name that they refuse to accept, everyone thinks that they're like on the left or something, but it's like,
well, no, they're absolutely reactionary. They're complete reactionaries.
Yeah.
And do you remember, Eric, there was that student that wrote a piece, and I can't remember what publication it was in, but there was a conservative student who wrote a piece saying, like, I'm a conservative and I don't feel silenced, so this is bullshit. Phoenix was talking about it as well. So there was actually an article fairly recently by a conservative student saying, this is bullshit. I don't feel silenced. What is this about? So, and I would be annoyed. Like, I'm not a Tory in any sense or a conservative, but I would be annoyed if, like, far right ideas like, race science were being conflated with, I don't know, the fact that I the fact that I have conservative views, if the Tories are so whatever. So this chilling effect again.
Some of these things.
Well, I mean, I have limited sympathy for that, because after all, the classic conservative argument is like, if you don't condemn such and such terrorist attack, then clearly you condone terrorism, which is something that they frequently target Muslim communities. So if Tories at the moment or some of them are annoyed that people equate racial science and racism with conservatism, well, to go with their logic, it's the responsibility of the conservatives to speak out against that. At the moment, they're not really doing that. So
I don't necessarily disagree. I think it's the minimum. They're not really doing much more. A few people are doing much more than the bare minimum. But no, maybe it is quite telling that more people aren't kind of standing up and going, "Hang on a minute." If they don't hold those views, or if they don't think it's all right to hold those views. But yeah, it is pretty gross. But there was that student that did write that piece. So yeah.
Well,
what else can we?
Oh, go ahead.
What else can we say about Gavin Williamson other than?
Were you going to say something about his spad?
His, first of all, he looks like a real estate agent. By the way, just throwing that out.
Who, Gavin or the spad?
Yeah, Gavin Williamson.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, he does. They're the worst people.
So not many people are going to know about Ian Mansfield, but here he is at Policy Exchange, and I believe can you see all this? No, it's not on the screen.
No, you have to share it, Eric.
Here we go. There.
Ooh.
So there's Ian Mansfield. So he was head of education and policy. So that was while Eric Kaufman was writing his research. Ian Mansfield was head of education skills and science. And he subsequently wrote a number of things on, because he was kind of around wonky for a little while.
He was one of the contributing editors of Wonky, which may tell you a few things about Wonky. But what I find particularly interesting in thinking about sort of higher education networks, I think Gavin Williamson is not necessarily an intellectual person. And I think a lot of his ideas come from particular people working in the background who are not necessarily going to be on front page news. And I think Ian Mansfield is one to look at, right?
Yeah, and I know here if you go to Conservative Home, the home of conservatism, with these really great shields up there.
Are those shields or bunting or guitar picks or nails?
I'm really upset that the Wales flag is in there, I've got to say. Can't they just keep it to their flipping union flags?
This I might consider this one is just the dragon's bum over here. I mean,
yeah, like that's a good one. They should just keep the dragon's bum in there, definitely with like a fart of fire coming out. Like, do you know what I mean? I'd like that. Anyway,
okay.
Why is his face everywhere?
Well, look at all these things that he's produced for. So he wrote a lot about Brexit, and when I came across him at first, it was while he was at Wonky, and he was saying that when he was a professional civil servant, it was really hard for him to be a Brexiteer because all of the other professional servants were Remainers. But it's also like that was David Cameron's position. But also like David Cameron's position at the time was Remain. So it's like, I'm sorry, but you're professional. Meanwhile, he's clearly conservative. And if you just imagine someone who's in that environment, he's regularly in situations where he's a minority view, whether that's Brexit, whether that's wonky or whatever, where he's the one, farther to the right. I'm not even considering him far right or whatever, but like he's like the one conservative in the room. And that's gonna, if you always put yourself in that position, you're gonna think that there's like a chilling effect or whatever. But that's, if I went into the conservative club, I'd probably be overwhelmed as well myself. Or if I went into the local, Foreign Legion bar, or like there's certain spaces where politics are weighted in different ways. But
I mean, like Phoenix said, aren't these people happy with running multiple countries? And if you're going to work in academia, then that's how, that's kind of like go work in the city, go work in stock market, whatever.
I mean, by the way, just to make it clear, to anybody who's watching this, why Ian Mansfield is important. So he is a special advisor at the moment for Gavin Williamson, as far as we know. He used to be a special advisor for, I think, Kwasi Kwarteng and Joe Johnson. And
real intellectual heavyweights then.
Real intellectual heavyweights. He is, by the way, the principal, or one of the architects of TEF, of the Teaching Excellence Framework. And he was also the winner of the Institute of Economic Affairs, the IEA Brexit Essay Prize in 2014. He was a former contributing editor of Wonky. And I think this is probably the most interesting thing about him. He self-published a fantasy novel, I believe in 2010, a fantasy novel set in a colonial era world with technology and, technologically and sociologically similar to our own Age of Enlightenment. And his self-published fantasy novel was called Imperial Visions. Are you going to look that up on Amazon or something? Yeah, just Amazon Imperial Visions.
That's great.
So that's the
enemy mob. Enemy mob.
So here's the brains in the Department for Education behind Gavin Williamson, when it's free speech on campus, or are we going to reopen universities or not? Ian Mansfield is one of the nodes in that decision-making networks, and this is the quality that we're working with.
Oh, look, there's some reviews.
Well, I think we should read. I bet it's not, it's probably not a terrible fantasy novel, but it's going to have some insights of like, the Elarin, and some of them are going to be these kind of, because he's clearly got a vision of like good and evil. I think that there's like a clear. So we've got to recapture the commanding heights of society from the left, right? Academia has always had a Marxist streak. So? And then, and also that's not true. I mean, it has...
Some academics are Marxist, but really...
I mean, ask any Marxist, even from the 1960s or whatever, whether it was fun and whether there were any chilling effects in the...
Well, there are some Marxists. There are some Marxists in critical management studies at Leicester who are currently being, made redundant. So yeah, pretty
Marxist streak. So here, we cannot simply abandon entire swaths of society to the left, and this is not simply for it's including the education of the young, and an important way to do that is to ensure that there are no areas of societies where conservative voices cannot be heard. So we got Sam Jima, and I forgot Jacob Rees-Mogg. We can always invite him on.
Campus tours. Can you imagine a campus tour with Jacob Rees-Mogg? What the hell?
Sam Jima has already done a campus tour involving, when he go to Sussex to shake hands with Adam Tickell.
Well, because I think we should invite Sam Jima for real. I do think, because he's now Liberal Democrat or something.
No, who knows if he's still a member of the Liberal Democrats political party. But I think he's either gone back to Has he gone
professionally immiserating people? Probably. What was he?
He's gone back to banking, right?
Yeah, professional immiseration of a different form.
But he did that free speech report while he was head of HE, and then Chris Skidmore came in and they found nothing. Like there's no evidence of what Sam Gima really wanted to find. So that's another one where I feel like we should, because when Gavin Williamson says that there's overwhelming evidence, it's like, let's see if they have works cited or anything down here. No, they've got footnotes here and there, but it's basically, there's like a King's College study, the JCHR, Prevent. There's very few sites. I mean, they say, the conservatives keep saying that there's evidence of this issue, and it's just there. I've not found any. And even Eric Kaufman, when he was on our show, which, I mean, he didn't want to actually get into the fact that he didn't actually have evidence.
No, well, you wouldn't, would you?
Well, and I think what's going to happen is that, you know, the references are going to become circular, right? So at some point, like this particular document from the government is then going to be cited in something else as providing evidence of, you know, whatever crisis, right? And I guess that was kind of the original intention of the race report as well, right? So the race report says there is no race, there's no institutional racism in this country, and then that report will then be cited in the future by other things as evidence saying that there is no institutional racism in this country. It's hilarious.
Yeah,
but that is a classic grift thing, right?
Because we were going to talk about that at one point, but we run out of time, really. So
I just want to say, though, can I just say that I really miss Chris Skidmore? I never thought I'd say that about a conservative.
Yeah. But yeah,
he's a medievalist. Well, he's a medievalist as well, but he understands the importance of the humanities, and I really wish he was still university's minister.
Well, I think he just didn't have enough time to do the kind of damage that other ministers.
I don't know. Let's see.
No, but I think if you're going to say, okay, the conservatives are in government, I would take Chris Skidmore any day of the week as like the best.
Yeah, well, I don't agree with that, because I think Chris Skidmore, you know, in his case, I think actually the fact that he has knowledge or some knowledge of how higher education actually works, having been a historian, is dangerous, because he feels like his experience speaks for everybody else's, whereas, you know, people like Sam Gima just obviously didn't have a clue. Nor does Michelle Donovan, and I don't really know if the people with a little bit of knowledge are a bit more dangerous than the people who are genuinely clueless.
That makes sense.
I hope you're correct, because that makes me feel a bit better about him not.
Yeah, that would put us in really good stead with Gavin Williamson and Michelle Donovan. If the more clueless, the better. So I don't know. I'm gonna go out and you know, here we've got viewpoint diversity in evidence. I'm gonna go with Chris Skidmore any day of the week.
we have viewpoint diversity. What a great show!
Yeah. Am I now deplatformed for saying that? I mean, am I now not allowed to say this?
No. Well.
I wish that these people weren't in government. I was just saying, you know.
I think after this, we're gonna do a poll on Twitter, and we're going to see which conservative minister all of us left academics want to be the university's minister.
Peter Armstrong. Sorry, he's not conservative, but Peter Armstrong for everything at this point.
And yeah, we'll just see how that goes. But otherwise, we're not sure whether we're going to come back next week. We're not, or the following week, but we did have our poll where I believe it was Gavin came out on top, and I'm trying to remember, there was no Carl.
For the first time.
Jordan Peterson. I think Jordan Peterson might have been next.
Selena Todd,
and then Carl. But yeah, we'll see who to invite next, and then we'll probably see you either next week or we may go to fortnightly. Otherwise, thank you very much to Gavin Williamson for not turning up.
Not showing up.
We had another lovely conversation, and we'll see you again soon. Thanks, everyone.
Huh? Free speech.